Story 1. The Shortcut. My first solo trip was to New Orleans, a place I dreamed of visiting for its lush scenery and vibrant culture. The downtown district was my first stop. A city buzzing with life, street vendors calling out, music spilling from open windows, and the hum of traffic weaving through crowded roads. I'd spent the day exploring, my sneakers scuffing against the uneven pavement of the French market, where stalls overflowed with bright fruits and handmade crafts. I'd snapped photos of colorful murals, sipped sweet coffee at a tiny cafe, and marveled at historical artifacts in a museum. By evening, my legs ached, and my heart was full of the thrill of being on my own in a new city. I was ready to head back to my hostel, a budget place called the Crescent Moon, to rest for another day of adventure. Standing on a busy street corner, I raised my hand to flag down a cab. The air was thick with the smell of grilled food and exhaust. A yellow taxi pulled up, its paint chipped and faded. The driver, a man in his 40s named Mike with a weathered face, thin mustache, and slicked back hair, leaned out the window and asked, "Where to, ma'am?" His voice smooth, almost too friendly. I told him the Crescent Moon Hostel, please, sliding into the back seat. My small laptop bag sat on my lap, heavy with my essentials: passport, laptop, camera, a notebook, and a thin stack of cash. I'd read enough travel blogs to know to keep it close, and my fingers gripped the strap tightly. "No problem," he said, flashing a smile in the rearview mirror that didn't quite reach his eyes. He asked if it was my first time in Louisiana. I told him yeah, settling into the worn leather seat. The cab smelled faintly of cigarette smoke and cheap air freshener. I told him it's been incredible, that the market was so lively today and the people are so warm. "Traveling alone?" he asked, his eyes flicking to me in the mirror. He remarked that that's brave, a young woman like me all by myself. I nodded, a little uneasy at his tone, but brushing it off as curiosity. I explained that I wanted to challenge myself and that it's been fun meeting people along the way. "Be careful," he said, his voice dropping slightly. "Not everyone hears what they seem." I forced a laugh, trying to lighten the mood, saying I'm learning that, but everyone's been kind so far. He didn't respond, just nodded, his hands tightening on the steering wheel. The city lights flashed by, neon signs and street lamps casting fleeting glows across the dashboard. But then I noticed we'd turned off the main road. The streets were narrower now, lined with shuttered shops and crumbling buildings. The crowds had vanished, replaced by empty sidewalks and flickering street lights. My stomach twisted. I asked if this was the way to the hostel, my voice thinner than I intended. "Shortcut," he said curtly, not looking at me. A soft click echoed in the cab, the doors locking. My heart lurched. I glanced at the door handle, wondering if I could unlock it quickly if I needed to. "It just doesn't look familiar," I said, trying to sound casual, explaining that I came through the main roads earlier. "Relax, ma'am," he snapped, his voice sharp now. "I know these streets better than you." My pulse quickened, thudding in my ears. I hugged my bag tighter, the straps cutting into my palms. The buildings outside grew darker, their windows boarded up or broken like gaping mouths. The cab's engine hummed too loudly in the silence, and Mike's eyes kept darting to me in the mirror, cold and calculating. I told myself I was overreacting, that he was just a grumpy driver taking a faster route. But my body didn't believe it. My hands shook as I checked my phone. No signal. "Of course." "Why are you so nervous?" he asked, suddenly laughing, his tone mocking. He told me I was making him nervous too. "I'm not," I said quickly, but my voice betrayed me. I told him I just want to get to the hostel. He chuckled, a low, unsettling sound, and remarked that you tourists are always so jumpy. The cab slowed as we pulled up to a building that looked like my hostel, its neon sign flickering in the distance. Relief flooded me, but it was short-lived. I reached for my wallet, my fingers clumsy, and asked how much. $200, he said, turning to face me fully. His eyes were hard, like stones. I handed him the bills, my hands trembling, but as I reached for the door, he lunged forward and grabbed my laptop bag, yanking it from my lap. The force knocked the breath out of me. "This isn't enough," he growled. "You need to pay more." My heart stopped. I gasped out, "What?" Pointing at the meter on the dashboard, its numbers glowing clearly. I told him that's what it says. He ignored me, clutching my bag tightly. "More money, or I keep this," he said, his voice low and menacing. He leaned closer, his breath hot and sour. He asked if everything was in here, my passport, my camera, and said I'd be lost without it. Panic clawed at my chest. My passport, my laptop, my camera, my entire trip depended on that bag. Without it, I'd be stranded, helpless. "Please," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I don't have more. That's all I have." "Empty your pockets," he demanded, his grip on my bag tightening. His eyes bore into mine, dark and unyielding, and I felt like a trapped animal. The locked doors seemed to close in around me, the cab a cage. My hands shook as I fumbled in my pockets, pulling out every last bill. "This is it," I said, holding it out. "Please just give me my bag." For a long moment, Mike stared at me, his face unreadable. Then he snatched the money, his rough fingers brushing mine, making me flinch. I thought he'd keep the bag anyway, but he suddenly shoved it out the window, letting it thud onto the sidewalk. "Get out," he snarled. I scrambled for the door handle, my fingers slipping in my panic. The lock clicked open and I stumbled out, grabbing my bag from the ground. My knees buckled as I stood, and the cab's tires screeched as he sped off. The red tail lights swallowed by the darkness. I stood frozen, clutching my bag, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst. I checked it frantically. Passport, laptop, camera, notebook, all still there. I'd lost the money, but nothing else. Yet the fear clung to me, cold and heavy. The street was too quiet, the shadows too deep. I felt eyes on me, watching from the darkness. Then I heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, coming from the alley across the street. My blood ran cold. A figure emerged, tall and lanky, his face hidden in the shadow of a hooded jacket. He didn't move, just stood there, staring. My legs felt like jelly, but I forced myself to move, backing toward the hostel's entrance, my eyes locked on him. He took a step forward and I ran. I burst through the hostel's glass door, the bell above it jangling loudly. The receptionist, a woman named Sarah, with dark hair and a gentle smile, looked up from her desk and asked if I was okay, her brow furrowing as she saw my face. I stammered that I was almost robbed, that the cab driver grabbed my bag, took my money, and threatened me. Her eyes widened and she stood, coming around the desk. "Oh no, that's awful," she said, asking if I was hurt. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. I told her no, just scared that he locked the doors, and then there was someone else outside watching me. She frowned, glancing at the door. "Watching you?" she asked. "Did they follow you?" I told her I didn't know and ran inside. "Stay here," Sarah said, grabbing a phone. She told me she was calling security to check outside and that I was safe now. I sank into a chair in the lobby, clutching my bag, like a lifeline. Sarah spoke quickly into the phone, her voice firm. A security guard named David appeared, a burly man with a flashlight, and headed outside. I watched through the glass, my heart still racing, but the street looked empty now. David returned, shaking his head, saying there was no one out there. Sarah sat beside me, her hand gentle on my arm. "It happens sometimes," she said softly. She explained that some drivers prey on tourists and told me to always use official cabs or call their trusted service next time. I nodded, feeling foolish and small. I told her I didn't know, that it was my first day here. "You couldn't have known," she said kindly. She told me I did the right thing getting out and to try to rest now, that tomorrow would be better. I thanked her and dragged myself to my room, a small space with a creaky bunk bed and a single window. I locked the door, checked it twice, and collapsed onto the bed, my bag still in my arms. Sleep wouldn't come. Every creak of the building made me jump, and I kept seeing Mike's cold eyes, hearing those footsteps in the alley. I checked my bag again, counting every item, terrified I'd miss something. Everything was there, but the fear wouldn't leave. The next morning I sat in the hostel's courtyard, sipping coffee, trying to shake the night before. The city looked different now, less vibrant, more menacing. I called my mom, my voice shaking as I told her what happened. "Come home," she urged, but I refused. I'd come to New Orleans to prove I could do this, and I wouldn't let one terrifying night stop me. For the rest of the trip, I was changed. I memorized the look of official cabs, avoided traveling alone after dark, and kept my bag slung across my body at all times. Every stranger's glance made my heart race, and I scanned every street for hidden figures. But I didn't stop exploring. I hiked through local parks, explored the bayous, and laughed with kind locals who shared their stories over home-cooked meals. The beauty of the state slowly healed the fear, though it never fully left. Story 2, room 312. After a messy breakup in Atlanta, I decided it was now or never. I packed my beat-up hatchback with clothes, a cooler full of snacks, a dog-eared road atlas, and a playlist of old rock and indie tunes. The plan was simple. Drive from Georgia to San Diego, stopping at small towns and quirky roadside attractions along the way. It felt like a fresh start, a chance to rediscover myself. By the time I hit San Diego, though, I was exhausted. Days of driving through endless highways, fueled by gas station coffee and granola bars, had left me drained. My eyes stung, my back ached, and all I wanted was a shower and a bed. I'd booked a hotel room through Expedia for one night in San Diego, near Mission Valley, off I-15 on Murphy Canyon Road. The hotel wasn't fancy, but the price was right. $89 for a single room, and the reviews described it as decent and clean enough. Good enough for a quick stopover before heading north to Los Angeles. When I pulled into the parking lot around 9 p.m., the hotel looked shabbier than the glossy photos online. The sign's neon letters flickered, spelling out VACNCY instead of vacancy. The building's stucco walls were cracked, and a few windows had duct tape holding up plastic sheets. I told myself it was just one night. The lobby didn't inspire confidence. The air smelled of stale cigarettes and cheap air freshener. A flickering fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on the worn linoleum floor. Behind the front desk sat a man in his 50s named Jim, his gray hair thinning, his eyes fixed on a computer screen. He wore a faded polo shirt with a hotel logo, a palm tree that looked like it was wilting. "Checking in?" he asked, barely looking up. I told him yes, I have a reservation, giving my name and sliding my ID across the counter. Jim tapped at the keyboard, his fingers moving sluggishly. After a moment, he handed me a key card and a paper sleeve and said, "Room 312, third floor, elevators down the hall." He gestured vaguely to the left, his eyes already back on the screen. "Thanks," I said, grabbing the key card and heading toward the elevator. It was one of those old ones, with scratched metal doors and buttons that barely lit up. It creaked and groaned as it climbed to the third floor, making me wonder when it was last inspected. The hallway was long and narrow, the carpet a faded red, with dark patches that looked like old spills. The wallpaper, a beige floral pattern, peeled at the corners, revealing yellowed plaster underneath. My room was at the far end, and I had to swipe the key card twice before the lock buzzed and clicked open. Inside, the room was as tired as the rest of the hotel. The bed had a thin mattress with a lumpy comforter, and the pillows felt like they were stuffed with cotton balls. A single lamp on the nightstand cast a weak yellow glow, leaving the corners of the room in shadow. The carpet had more of those unsettling stains, and the curtains, heavy, dusty things, hung unevenly over a window that overlooked the parking lot. I peeked into the bathroom, a chipped sink, a shower with rust stains, and a single towel that looked like it had been washed 1,000 times. I sighed. It wasn't the Hilton, but it would do. I locked the door, noticing the handle felt loose, like it might come off with a good tug. For extra peace of mind, I slid the lock bar into place, a sturdy metal arm that hooked into the door frame. Traveling alone as a woman, I'd learned to take every precaution. You hear too many stories. I dropped my backpack on the floor, took a quick shower under a weak stream of lukewarm water, and changed into my pajamas, a soft t-shirt, and sweatpants. My phone was at 20%, so I plugged it into the outlet by the bed, set an alarm for 7 a.m., and crawled under the covers. The mattress spring squeaked, but I was so tired I didn't care. Sleep came fast. A loud thud jolted me awake. My eyes flew open, my heart hammering in my chest. For a second I thought I'd imagined it, my mind still foggy from sleep. Then it came again. A sharp, deliberate bang against the door, followed by a rattling sound, like someone was trying to force the handle. I glanced at the digital clock on the nightstand. 4:33 a.m. The room was dark, save for the faint orange glow of a street light sneaking through the curtains. My mouth went dry as I lay there, frozen, straining to listen. Then I heard voices. Male voices, low and muffled, just outside the door. "Come on, open up, sweetheart," one said, his tone smooth but laced with something sinister. "We know you're in there." My stomach twisted into a knot, my breath caught in my throat as another voice, rougher and deeper, chimed in, saying, "Pretty girl like you shouldn't be alone. Let's have some fun." The door handle jiggled again, more violently this time. The door itself pushed inward, straining against the lock bar with a creak that made my skin crawl. Thank God for that lock bar. It held firm, the only thing keeping them out. I could hear them muttering to each other, their words too low to make out, but the tone was enough to make my blood run cold. My mind raced with questions. Who were these men? How did they know I was here? Did they follow me from the lobby, the parking lot? I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking so badly I fumbled and nearly dropped it. I crouched on the bed, pulling the blanket around me like a shield, and dialed the front desk. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Each ring felt like an eternity. Finally, Jim, the same bored clerk from earlier, answered. "Front desk? How can I help you?" he said, his voice flat, like I was interrupting his nap. "There are 2 men trying to get into my room," I whispered, my voice trembling. I told him they're outside my door shaking the handle, and asked him to please send security or call the police. A long pause. I could hear Jim breathing, slow and heavy on the other end. He asked what room I was in. "Room 312, I said, my eyes locked on the door. The handle had stopped moving, but I could still hear their voices, low and indistinct. Another pause. Longer this time. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but our system shows no reservation for room 312, Jim said, asking if I was sure I was at the right hotel. My heart sank. I asked what he was talking about, saying I checked in with him tonight, gave him my ID, and have the booking confirmation on my phone from Expedia. "Ma'am," Jim said, his voice infuriatingly calm, "our records show room 312 was re-rented to another guest earlier this evening. We don't have any reservation under your name." "That's impossible," I hissed, trying to keep my voice low so the men outside wouldn't hear. "I told Jim I'm in room 312 right now. I checked in a few hours ago, and he gave me the key card himself." "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "We don't partner with Expedia." He suggested maybe I booked at the hotel across the street, saying it happens sometimes. I wanted to scream. I told Jim I'm not across the street. I'm in his hotel, in his room. And there are men trying to break in, so do something. Just then, I heard a muffled curse outside, followed by the sound of footsteps retreating down the hallway. The men were leaving, their voices fading into the distance. My shoulders sagged with relief, but my heart was still pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "They're gone," I told Jim, my voice shaky. I asked what's going on with my reservation and why he was telling me I'm not supposed to be here. "Ma'am, I suggest you come to the front desk in the morning," Jim said, his tone still maddeningly detached. He told me the manager will be in at 9 a.m., and they can sort it out then. "Sort it?"